Most scary stories end when the lights turn on. These don't. Every account you're about to hear was shared by someone who lived through it. Ordinary people who had no reason to believe something was wrong until it was already happening. No monsters, no legends, no special effects. Just moments where reality slipped, where doors opened, phones rang, footsteps followed, and someone realized far too late that they weren't alone. Some of these stories were reported. Some were dismissed. Some are never explained. And all of them have one thing in common. The people who experienced them still think about that moment, the exact second they understood something was deeply wrong. Turn off the lights if you want. Lock the doors if it makes you feel better. It won't help, because these are the 10 scariest true stories of 2025. Back in 2017, I moved to a tiny rural town in Illinois. I barely knew anyone there, just one friend. I was in my early 20s, single, introverted, and surrounded by a mostly retired population. Making friends felt almost impossible. My friend, let's call her Clara, thought she had a solution. She introduced me to an older couple in their early 50s who were looking for a dog sitter. She said it might help me make connections and earn some money. When I went to meet them, their house immediately stood out. It was a rundown 1970s brick ranch, outdated, cracked in places, and clearly neglected. I didn't mind. I explored abandoned houses for fun. The dogs were sweet. The couple weren't. They were polite, but something felt off. Instead of making eye contact, they would slowly scan my body while I talked, like they were evaluating me. During the house tour, they didn't explain anything, just opened doors, stood there silently, then closed them again. They also casually mentioned they sold firearms out of their home. What really bothered me, though, was the cameras. They were everywhere, outside, hallways, living room, kitchen, office, garage, backyard, even pointed at the kitchen table. They told me it was for insurance purposes. I didn't love it, but I needed the money. A week later, they left for vacation, and I moved in and watched the dogs. I set up my workspace in their office, which had a monitor displaying the exterior camera feeds. Honestly, it helped me feel safer. The house sat on a large property backed by woods, and the dog had a doggy door they could use anytime. The first night was uneventful. The second night wasn't. Around 10 p.m., I noticed one of the driveway cameras went offline. Rural Wi-Fi is unreliable, so I didn't panic, but I went to check anyway. Before I reached the door, both dogs suddenly leapt up and bolted through the doggy door, barking frantically. I rushed to the backyard. The dogs were losing it at the fence line, right where the woods began. I couldn't see anything, but my nerves were shot. I eventually lured them inside with treats, blocked the doggy door with a heavy chair, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up late. The house was silent. The dogs weren't in the room. I found them outside. That's when my stomach dropped. The chair I had shoved in front of the doggy door was no longer there. It had been moved across the room. I called Clara immediately, panicking. There was no way two dogs had dragged that chair 5 feet. She came over, and we searched the entire house, room by room. Nothing. She tried to reassure me. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe it didn't block it as well as I thought. I stayed anyway, on high alert for the next few days. Then, one night, everything changed. I sat down in the office and glanced at the camera monitor. Every single camera was offline. All of them. I texted the couple to let them know and offered to troubleshoot. Hours passed. No response. Later that night, close to midnight, the dogs suddenly scrambled toward the door again. I grabbed a kitchen knife. I didn't see anything outside, but then I heard a loud thump on the other side of the house. I locked the dogs inside, blocked the door again, this time taking a photo, and went to investigate. The back room felt wrong. It's hard to explain, but the air felt different. Like the silence itself had weight. I called out. No response. I locked the room and sat in the living room with the dogs, knife in hand, phone ready. Then my phone buzzed. A text from a wife. Don't worry about the cameras. You're safe. That sentence made no sense. Minutes later, she texted again asking me to check if the garage door connecting to the house was open. The same back room I had just locked. Then another message. I see you're up. Can you check? That's when I realized they were watching me. I forced myself to open the door. The garage door was open. As I stepped closer, my phone lit up, and in the glow, I saw it. An arm, pressed flat against the wall beside the doorway. I ran. I bolted out the front door, jumped in my car, and as the headlights swept across the garage, I saw a grown man crouched behind a box. I drove straight to the police station. They found nothing. No signs of a break-in. 20 minutes after they left, I got a text. Plans changed. We're coming home. You can leave. As I drove away, I saw a car with no headlights pull into their driveway. I texted her. Someone just arrived. Her reply came instantly. I know. They had been there the entire time. I work as a bartender just outside Baltimore. It's a loud, crowded place. No waiters, just bartenders and cooks. Everything runs fast, chaotic and loud. That night was packed. College kids. Tequila shots. Chaos. That's when I noticed them. An elderly couple sitting silently in a corner booth. They didn't order. They didn't speak. They didn't move. They stared at the wall. When I finally approached them, the woman didn't react at all. The man slowly turned toward me. His eyes were sunken. His skin looked gray. He shook his head once, slow and deliberate. No words. Later, I glanced back. They were both staring directly at me, unblinking. Then they were gone. My coworker swore she never saw them. As I left that night, I saw two figures standing under a streetlight across the road, watching me. I never saw them again. My best friend once told me this story about his father, a logger in the Pacific Northwest. He worked deep in the mountains, alone most days, cutting trees in places so remote it took weeks just to reach them. One job, he and his partner started hearing voices on their radios. No matter what channel they switched to, the voices followed. Then they found campsites, footprints, a tent. Inside were things no one should ever see. Children's clothing, rope, duct tape, drawings. They stayed. They shouldn't have. One night, someone tried to enter their camper. For minutes of scratching on the door, then violence. They survived. 2 weeks later, another worker was found murdered. No one was ever arrested. Last summer, my friend James invited me to his family's lake house. It was quiet, isolated, expensive. We were drinking on the dock when we saw a light flashing across the lake. 3 short flashes. 3 long. 3 short. SOS. Against our better judgment, we went to investigate that. We didn't even consider the front door. Walking straight up to it would have been suicide. Instead, we circled the house slowly, keeping low, until we found a window on the side that wasn't locked. One by one, we slipped inside. The house wasn't just abandoned. It was empty. No furniture. No trash. No signs of anyone ever living there. Bara floors. Bara walls. Every room stripped down to nothing. We moved carefully, listening for movement, searching for the stairs. Every room looked the same, hollow and lifeless, until we finally found them and began climbing to the 2nd floor. I kept track of the window in my head, just in case. At the end of the hallway was the room where we thought the light had come from. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. I looked at James. He nodded. I eased the door open. The room was empty, except for one thing. By the window sat an old projector aimed directly outward toward the lake. My stomach dropped. This wasn't random. Someone had set this up on purpose. Before I could say anything, James bolted down the hallway. No stills. No hosetashchen. I followed. As we tore down the stairs, I heard a door behind us burst open, probably a closet, followed by heavy, rapid footsteps. We sprinted through the house. James jumped through the window first. As I climbed out, I heard those footsteps pounding down the stairs toward me. I didn't look back. We ran for the water. Then James swore. The kayak was gone, and that's when I saw him. A large figure rounded the side of the house, charging straight at us. He was fast, too fast. I pulled my knife, expecting James to do the same, but instead he jumped straight into the lake, fully clothed. I followed. The water was shockingly cold. My lungs burned as we swam toward the faint glow of James' house across the lake. It felt impossibly far, but adrenaline carried us through. When we dragged ourselves onto the dock, I couldn't feel my hands. I've never been that cold in my life. We locked ourselves inside and called the police. It took nearly an hour for them to arrive. They crossed the lake, searched the house, and came back with exactly what I expected. No one there. No signs of entry. No footprints. No equipment. The house had been abandoned for years. They scolded us for not calling sooner. James' parents were furious. I was never invited back to that lake house again. To this day, I don't know who was in that house, or what they planned to do if we hadn't run. And I don't think I want to know. I moved into my new house looking for a clean break. Bad breakup. Bad decisions. Fresh start. The neighborhood was quiet. Safe. Mostly families. Big houses with plenty of space between them, except for the massive house next door. That place was enormous. I assumed a huge family lived there. I was wrong. When I finally introduced myself, a guy my age answered the door. Mullet. Big smile. Friendly. His name was Damon. He joked about how rare it was to meet someone born in the same decade. We bonded over feeling out of place among families with kids. He invited me over for drinks sometime, but dodged every attempt to actually hang out. He said he worked in finance, wouldn't elaborate, and somehow he lived alone in that massive house. Months passed. I never saw guests. No deliveries. No parties. No one coming or going. His car never moved. Then one Wednesday night, around 2 a.m., loud music woke me up. I looked outside. 7 cars filled Damon's driveway. A party. Annoyed but reasonable, I walked over to ask him to turn it down. The door was unlocked. Inside were piles of shoes in the foyer, but no people. No drinks. No movement. Then I realized the noise wasn't music. It was a recording. Fake laughter. Fake voices. A stage party. I followed a faint light into the basement. Behind a cracked door, I saw 3 older men in heavy work clothes, goggles, gloves, watching something I couldn't see. The smell hit me next. Bleach. That's when fear took over. I turned to leave, and the door behind me closed. I ran. Back home. I watched as 8 older men poured out of Damon's house, scanning the neighborhood. Damon wasn't with them. The next morning, every car was gone. Damon never came back. Months later, packages still sit unopened on his porch. No one else in the neighborhood ever heard the party. I still don't know what I walked into, and I don't know if I want to ask if Damon ever returns. After my divorce, I moved into my grandfather's old house in rural Alabama. 10 acres. Woods on all sides. Quiet. Too quiet. On the 7th night, I heard whistling outside. Slow. Off-key. Moving through the trees. It happened again the next night. Closer. Always around 1:17 a.m. When I called the sheriff, the deputy went silent. My grandfather had reported the same thing for over a decade. The whistling got closer each night. Then it moved under the house. Then inside. One night, it came from the hallway. Another night, knocking. 3 slow knocks from inside the house. When I finally saw him, a pale face in the dark hallway, I screamed and raised my shotgun. He ran. The next morning, the front door was unlocked. Someone had a key. I changed the locks that day, and I never went back. I live alone. No pets. No roommates. One night at 3 a.m., I was working in silence when footsteps thundered down my hallway, followed by violent banging on my bedroom door. Then nothing. No retreating footsteps. No explanation. Minutes later, I heard someone walking away. I chased them. The house was empty. Everything locked. The police found nothing. For weeks, I barely slept. To this day, I don't know how someone got in or out, but I know they were there. I work for a property preservation company. Basically, when homes get foreclosed, we're the ones sent in to secure them, changing locks, cleaning them out, winterizing them, sometimes boarding them up if there's been vandalism. It's not glamorous, but it pays well. And most of the time, it's quiet. You spend long hours alone inside houses that used to belong to people who are gone. Sometimes it's sad. Sometimes it's just dull. And once in a while, a house feels wrong. This happened in 2020 when I was assigned to a property in a rural part of upstate New York. One of those towns that feels like it's slowly dying. One gas station, half the business is closed, cracked roads swallowed by weeds. The house sat at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by woods on 3 sides. No nearby neighbors, just trees and silence. According to the file, the owner was an elderly woman who had passed away. No heirs stepped forward. Utilities had been shut off for over a year. My job was simple. Document everything, clear it out, and secure it for winter. I arrive around 9 a.m. with a small box truck. From the outside, Nothing looked unusual. Windows intact. Door locked. Roof fine. Just vines crawling up the porch. The front door was swollen in its frame, so I had to force it open. Inside, it smelled like dust and stale air. Faded furniture. Everything felt frozen in time. Then my work phone rang. That alone was strange. I had no signal out there. I'd already checked. The caller ID just said unknown. I answered. Nothing. Just faint crackling like static. I said hello twice and hung up, assuming it was a glitch. I started my usual routine, photographing every room. The living room was packed with old furniture, lace curtains, porcelain figurines. It reminded me of my grandmother's house. The hallway smelled different. Not rot, more like mildew mixed with something faintly metallic. There were 3 bedrooms. One was stripped bare except for a sagging mattress. Another had clearly been a sewing room. Thread spools everywhere. A dusty machine on a desk. That's when I noticed the corkboard. It was covered in newspaper clippings. Obituaries. Dozens of them, carefully cut and pinned. All local names. None I recognized. I moved on. In a master bedroom, something caught my eye, a rotary phone on the nightstand. Yellowed with age. Long coiled cord. A phone that should never ring again. The bathroom was next. That's when my phone rang a second time. Unknown caller. I hesitated, then answered. Silence. 5 seconds passed. Then a whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. Don't answer the phone in the bedroom. The line went dead. I stood there frozen. The house was completely silent. Every window was closed. No sign of anyone outside. I told myself it had to be a prank, maybe another crew member messing with me, but no one else knew I was there. And I still had no signal. My phone flickered between one bar and none. I tried calling my supervisor. The call failed. I decided to finish as fast as possible. While boxing items in the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I kept glancing down the hallway. Then I heard it. Not my phone. The rotary phone. Ringing. A loud, mechanical ring echoed through the house. That phone had no service. No line. No power. I slowly walked down the hall. Each ring made the receiver tremble on the nightstand. I stopped in the doorway. There was no chance I was answering it. Eventually, the ringing stopped. I wanted to leave, but I still had to check the basement. The door was in the kitchen. The stairs creaked as I descended, flashlight shaking in my hand. The air smelled like mold and rust. Shelves lined the walls. Old paint cans. Broken furniture. In the back corner sat a small table. On it, a newer cordless phone. And beside it, a stack of yellowed notebooks. I opened one. Each page had a name, a date, and a short note. Lena H., July 3rd, 2019. Rang once. Didn't answer. Carl M., September 12th, 2019. Picked up. Warned him. Dozens of entries. I dropped the notebook. Every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. I ran upstairs, locked the door behind me, and left. I told my office the property felt unsafe. They reassigned it. 2 days later, another guy, Mark, went to finish the job. I never told him what happened. That afternoon, I got a text. The phone in the bedroom rang while I was there. What the hell? He quit the next day. The police checked the house later. Found nothing. No squates. No waiting. No explanation. To this day, I don't know if it was an elaborate prank or something far worse. When I was 10 years old, my family moved into a bigger house after my mom remarried. Quiet neighborhood. Lots of trees. At first, I was excited. Then the house started feeling wrong. My bedroom was at the end of the hallway. 2 large windows facing the backyard. A deep closet. The first night, I woke up to soft shuffling inside the closet. I told myself it was just the house settling. Then the door moved. Not opening, just trembling like something pressed against it from the inside. By morning, the door was cracked open. It got worse after that. Tapping on my windows. No branches nearby. One night, I pulled the blanket back and saw a pale hand pressed against the glass on the second floor. A month later, my little brother started talking about the white lady. He said she sat on his bed. One night, he screamed. Said she stood in his doorway with black eyes. I believed him because I'd seen her too. She came in my dreams. Whispered my name. Then one night during a storm, my locked window slid open by itself. She floated inside. Tall, white dress, hair like wet string. She leaned over me and whispered my name. I screamed. The window was locked again when my parents arrived. They called it night terrors. I call it something else. 2 years ago, I drove into the mountains to visit an old friend, Scott. We hadn't spoken in years. The drive was long, icy, dark. His house sat alone on the mountainside. Sparse furniture. Long, dark hallway. From the couch, that hallway felt like a tunnel into nothing. Scott was different. Slower. Quiet. Distracted. He kept staring down that hallway. The first night, I heard running footsteps upstairs. The second night, scraping sounds and tapping on the wall behind me. The third night, I woke up unable to move. Sleep paralysis. Then I saw Scott standing at the end of the hallway, watching me. He turned and walked into the guest room. When I finally forced myself to check, someone was standing in that room. But Scott was upstairs asleep. When I asked him who was downstairs, he just shrugged. I left in the middle of the night. As I drove away, I saw a silhouette in the window at the end of the hall. Scott never replied to me again. Whatever stayed in that house stayed with him. If you're still listening, you're probably doing what everyone does after hearing something like this. Replaying details, questioning what you would have done differently, convincing yourself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe there was. Or maybe the scariest part of these stories isn't what happened, but how easily it could happen again. A house that answers when it shouldn't. A stranger who was never supposed to be there. A sound that follows you long after it stops. Most people who share experiences like these don't do it for attention. They do it because pretending it never happened is worse. So tonight, when your phone rings, when the floor creaks, when something feels just slightly off, pay attention, because every story you heard started the same way, with someone who thought they were safe. Sleep well.